Well, hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Saturday, September the 20th. And welcome to our commentary. Well, we're getting down to the last week of the baseball season. In fact, this weekend and next weekend, and the season is over. And let's just say it has not been a very nice week for the Texas Rangers. They've lost five straight. A week ago, we were very excited about their prospects. They seem to be making a move. Well, it all fell apart in Houston, losing three straight. They lost to Miami last night, so it's just not a good situation for the Rangers right now, and it's a shame because, as I say, a week ago we were pretty excited that they might just get in. It's very unlikely now. In fact, it's almost impossible now. I wouldn't say impossible because it's never impossible, I guess, until you're mathematically eliminated. But it doesn't look very good. I wouldn't bet on it. Okay, I wouldn't bet on it if I were you. It's just not a good situation. So the Rangers have had a very tough year. They just have not played up to potential, and I guess we'll see some changes in the offseason. I mean, that's what usually happens when you have back-to-back seasons where you perform under expectations. So probably the team will look a little different when they get to spring training next season. Well, I have a post over at the American Thinker today about Jimmy Kimmel. And the title of the post is Jimmy, Look in the Mirror. And that's exactly right. Jimmy, look in the mirror. Because everything that is happening to Jimmy Kimmel, he can look in the mirror and see who the problem is. The problem is that Jimmy Kimmel, first of all, he wasn't getting the numbers. This was not a show that was getting numbers. And as you know, television, you require numbers. He wasn't getting the numbers. His show was not getting the kinds of numbers that you would expect at that time of the day with a show like that. The show also had become too obsessed with Trump. I mean, Jimmy Kimmel had basically become anti-Trump. All the humor was anti-Trump. All the attacks were anti-Trump. The guests were anti-Trump. So you basically had a situation where if you hated Trump or if you hate Trump, the show was great. But 77 million people voted for Trump, including myself. And we look at this show and we go, wait a minute, this is not funny. This is not funny. So we didn't watch it. Then, of course, came that remark about Charlie Kirk and the shooting, which was really, when you think about it, whatever he meant to say, he shouldn't have said anything. The best thing to say when there's been a political murder like this, the best thing to say is, look, I'm sorry it happened. That type of shooting, violence doesn't have a place in our society. I'm sorry for the widow. I'm sorry for the kids, and move on, because that's all you need to say. And unfortunately, he didn't. He had to get into the usual attack on Trump, and everything has backfired. So at the moment, I guess he is suspended. From what I understand, from just following the news like everybody else, there was a rebellion among some of the affiliates who carry his show, because there's I guess a couple of companies who own about 40% of the TV stations that this show runs on across the country. And most of those stations said, we're not showing this. We're not going to have his show anymore. So we're canceling his show. Whatever you do, ABC, that's up to you. But, we're not showing the show here in our markets. And the reason for that is that there was a sense of really disgust with what he said. And also people have had it with these, late night shows that do nothing but attack Trump. So it's over for Jimmy Kimmel. Even if he were to come back on the show, I don't even think he would get the ratings, or even he'd probably do worse than he's doing. And he's doing pretty bad right now. Plus, again, a lot of TV stations across the country are not going to have him. So Jimmy Kimmel can look at himself in the mirror and see who the problem is. He created this by the way he ran that show. Had he actually done comedy and entertainment, which is what these night shows are supposed to be, I mean, we all remember Johnny Carson. Johnny Carson was the king of late night. He was the top of the late night TV market like for 30 years. I mean, Johnny Carson was good, but Johnny Carson didn't get into politics. He didn't play this partisan politics game. He was right down the middle, and that's who he was. And unfortunately, Jimmy Kimmel wasn't, and that's why he's out, and he's probably going to stay out. So again, if your TV show becomes nothing more than an infomercial for attacking Trump, whether it's Jimmy Kimmel or The View, another program that ABC is probably going to have to take a look at, because that, there's no balance on that program. Then, if they want to keep running that kind of programming, they're going to have smaller and smaller audiences all the time. And eventually the people who pay the bill, the advertisers are going to say, no, we're not getting our money's worth. Because if you make perfume, if you're a company and you make perfume, you want to sell, for example, perfume, you want to sell perfume to everybody, not just women who voted for Kamala Harris. You want to sell perfume to women who voted for Donald Trump, because you're in the perfume business. You're not in the politics business. So anyway, that's how it's going. I think he's pretty much, maybe he'll come back in some cable channel. I mean, that's a different market, a different situation. The money standards are different in a cable channel. But as far as nighttime prime on one of the networks, I think he's pretty much done. And frankly, it couldn't happen to a nicer guy. What he said about Charlie Kirk's death was sick. That's all I can say. Sick. That's the only word that I can think of. Well, there's a lot of controversy because there's a new book by Kamala Harris. Now, we knew that this book was out there because we've talked about it before. The book is called 107 Days, which is, I guess, how long the campaign was. And it seems like they're releasing bits and pieces every week about the book. I don't even know when the book is going to be released. By the time they release the book, I mean, what new information is there going to be in the book? Not much. But the latest bit of information that they released has to do, I guess, she's being critical of President Biden because she wasn't getting support. Look, these books don't add much to the history. She's obviously a frustrated woman, and she wants to somehow justify why she lost or explain why she lost. And she doesn't have to write a book to do that. I can tell her in 2 minutes why she lost. She was a very bad candidate. She was appointed by the party, never went through the primaries. Primaries are extremely important. If you're going to run for president, you better go through primaries, because these primaries make you a better candidate, because you have to answer questions. You got to talk to the media. And she didn't do any of that. She was basically appointed as the candidate, didn't have to go through any of that. And I think in the long run, it showed during the campaign, because she had no experience. She wasn't comfortable campaigning. And the way you get comfortable campaigning is going through the primaries. That's what they're for. That's why we have. So she was a bad candidate. She didn't do press conferences. That was the other thing. I mean, if your message is vote for me because I want to be the first Black woman, that's not going to be enough. That's not going to be enough. Now, Obama got away with a little bit of that because it was a good year for the Democrats. In other words, you had that year, 8 years of President Bush, and normally we change after 8 years. The party out of power tends to have a better favorable situation. Also, McCain, in retrospect, was not a good candidate. He was a great guy, a great man, but not turned out to be a bad candidate. But so we already had our first Black president. So if you're going to run for president and say, make me your first Black woman president, that's not enough. That's not enough. You need more than that. And unfortunately, she didn't give it. So we'll see. I mean, I'm sure more information is going to come out about her book. Honestly, if I were you, I wouldn't waste my money buying the book. There's nothing there to read. I mean, I think we all know what happened. She was a bad candidate who had a terrible message. And unfortunately, the other thing, too, that worked against her is that she was carrying the burden of the Biden presidency. I mean, she had to explain the Biden presidency, and that didn't work out very well for her. So I wouldn't recommend that you buy the book, but if you want to waste $25 or $30, go right ahead. You'd be better off taking the $25 and $30 and taking your wife out to lunch. I think that might be a better investment than that. I have a post coming out tomorrow about Gen Z, this generation Gen Z. And these are the people who were born between 1997 and 2012. They would be right now somewhere between 12 and 27. That's the age group that we're talking about. In this group, it's amazing how different the people who voted for Trump and the people who voted for Kamala Harris are in that group. And it's fascinating the differences in that group and how they differ on views like marriage, careers. For example, if you ask most young women who voted for Kamala Harris, or women in that group, they'll tell you that the most important thing is a career. If you ask the young women who voted for Trump in that group, they'll say the most important thing is having a family and raising a family. So obviously we got two groups here, or one generation with two people, with two types of voters, and they have very different ideas. And I think this is going to have an impact in the future, in the next 10 to 15 years, when these people grow up and begin to have families or not have families. It's just going to be interesting how it all impacts our society. But there's going to be an impact, when you have all of these people having families and all of these people here not having families. It's going to have an impact, absolutely, on just the politics of the country, the economics of the country, and everything else. So I've got that coming out tomorrow. I would encourage you to check it out tomorrow, because I think it's interesting. It's a fascinating subject for me to talk about this. Well, one last couple of things I wanted to say here at the end. Of course, the Charlie Kirk funeral ceremony is going to be, I don't know the actual funeral, but they're going to have a event at a stadium there in Arizona. So it's going to be full of people. President Trump will be there. Vice President Vance will be there. Secretary Rubio will be there. I mean, I assume the security is going to be pretty rough. And there's 70,000 people who are going to be there too. So it's going to be something to watch. I assume it'll be on live television. I'm sure that it will be. So Charlie Kirk, the memorial event for Charlie Kirk. And today, before I go, I want to say happy number 91 to Sophia Loren. Now, if you're very young, you don't remember her, but Sophia Loren was one of the greatest Italian actresses of the last 50 years, maybe the last 70 years. And she was just an absolutely beautiful woman who made a lot of fascinating movies. And they were generally romantic and comedies and so on, but they were really, really good movies. And Sophia Loren was just an absolutely beautiful woman who was also a wonderful actress. So happy number 91 to Sophia Loren, who I assume lives in Italy, but I'm not 100% sure about that. Have a great weekend, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye, everybody.